WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I'm wearing my old school Raskin Global shirt here in the hopes that maybe we'll get Leonard Raskin out for a crab cake at some point. We're going to be at Conrad's Crabs at Perry Hall on Wednesday, the 27th, doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's all presented by the Maryland Lottery and Goodwill Industries, and now Window Nation. We're signing more sponsors around here, which gives me more money in the coffers for Leonard Raskin to go do things and manage money and manage the American dream. Hey, man, right this week, we're just trying to manage draft expectations, right? Literally.
Draft. 5 fourth-round picks, right? 5 fourth-round picks. That's where they make it or break it this year. So we'll see how great Eric DeCosta is with manipulating the other teams to give him what he wants.
Well, I would say this.
I think we're 14 and 45. And then the big fourth round is where it's all going to happen.
I would say early on Saturday, there's going to be a lot of activity, maybe deals in, deals out. I don't know that they're going to make all these picks because rarely they do. Right. But this is fun. This is for some people, and especially in the early days, right? Because, I got into the draft honest. I got to know Eric DeCosta and Joe Ortiz early on with Phil Savage. I fell in with Phil in the beginning because the team stunk, right? 96, 97, 98, we're drafting fourth. We're drafting 10th. We're drafting fourth. And it was those picks, and it really was how I learned football here when the team came. We had an old, stinky team in 96 and a bunch of guys that never played again, never played another down again in their career at the end. Probably like a lot of these Orioles players, they're going to get one chance and it'll be the only chance they get. But for the Ravens, it was all about building. Ray, John, Peter Boulware, Jamie Sharper, just going, Chris McAllister, through all of that. That I think 27 years later, I don't say the draft means more to Ravens fans, but I would say knowing draft parties and how long I've been at it, this was always the highlight of the all season, especially in a town where the baseball hasn't been good in April most years.
I think it would mean a lot more if they had a big old draft in Baltimore instead of Las Vegas. We've been here a little longer than them, but I know that is the party capital of the world. So you got to go out there and hang out by the fountains at the Bellagio, and I guess they'll draft to musical water. I don't know. It'll be kind of wild to see what they do. The NHL All-Stars went out there too, and they did a little puck shooting on the water, which was kind of cool. But
for me, with getting the draft here, that to me feels like a committee, right? It feels to me like the NFL had its spots where it wanted to go to Philadelphia, it wanted to go to Vegas, places they want to go, places they took it in Chicago when they first started it. They got good weather. Cleveland. There's a movement for that in the same way that we lured an all-star game here in 1993, and then Angelo screwed it up 5 years ago, and we never got it again, right? Not that it's any big deal to have an all-star game, but if you're going to get a World Cup, you're going to have a committee, and you're going to have a bid, and you're going to put people together and all that. If they ever wanted to draft here.
That's what begets a Baltimore, positive image. That's what makes the city better. You got to have these professional places want to be here. They got you got to have lacrosse here. You got to have the World Cup here. You got to have the draft here. You got to have the All-Star game here. That's when people recognize that Baltimore is the place to be. And unfortunately, right now, it's the place to stay away from for a lot of people. It's bad.
Well, I wonder what that looks like for Bisciotti in going to the league and saying, I want the draft, or Dick Cass saying, we want the draft, or the mayor or the governor saying, we want the draft, and why wouldn't we do it here? That's a hell of a question this week, Leonard, because we don't think big around here anymore, right? Like we think, well, we don't get nice things. Where would the movement afoot be to lure the draft to Baltimore? What would that look like? It wouldn't look like an outgoing team president and Dick Cass. It wouldn't look like
one race once.
But I think inside the infrastructure of the league, certainly for a Super Bowl, there's a committee, there's millions of dollars, studies, all of that. But with the draft,
they don't want to be cold. I get it. Okay.
Well, it's such a new thing, though, the draft. Like, it's only been 5 years that they've really placed it places. that it would go on turn, as they would say. Yeah, they want to do it in LA, right? They're going to do it out there with the state. They're going to be doing everything in LA every third year out there. They're not going to be able to get enough of it because, as you said, at least they have weather.
That's right. They got the weather, and it's silly, but you gotta be a major league city. Look, the O's are putting up some good numbers. They're looking good. They're playing hard. They're trying. Take 2 out of 3 against the Shohei Ohtanis and the Mike Trouts. Struck him out a half a dozen times over the weekend. That was nice. And played decent against the Yankees. So get up there to New York and see how they fare. I think it's time for we got the Adley Rutschman.
Well, Aberdeen, right?
Week.
Yeah.
No, not Bowie. Aberdeen, right? He's going to be in Aberdeen. So that should track some people to the Iron Birds for a day or two.
Well, it is interesting you mentioned the draft, and like whoever the kid is that they pick with the first pick and then the 45th pick and then these 4 or 5 guys in the 4th round that we're going to turn into celebrities around here and figure out which 1 or 2 may actually make the team.
Right.
Baseball's always had this, right? Baseball's always had this promise of Matt Wieters is coming, or Adley Rutschman is coming, or Grayson Rodriguez, or DL Hall, and all of that.
Ben McDonald.
Ben McDonald. Yeah, you go back to our childhood now with that.
I remember when Ben came, man. He was huge. Dude was what's he, 6'10"?
6'7".
Dunk. Okay, he's a big dude. Dude was going to be the next coming.
Well, he was wrestling alligators. Remember that? And his dad, Larry?
Yeah, unfortunately, got a little hurt.
Listen, Ben calls the games. Ben's been a great broadcaster. I mean, really has been, and a great guy. I mean, I've known Ben 30 years. But to your point, there is the promise of that, of the youth, of what's next, of here we go. And with the Orioles, that's all we have right now. So to your point, Adley Rutschman playing some games in Bowie or Aberdeen. Yeah, that's as good as it's going to get right here, right now, right? Because they're
not up to the big club.
They're not going to win a lot of ball games, but Luke keeps talking about the benchmark for the Orioles this year, and I'm going to sign off on this. I agree with Luke on this. Are they a better team in August and September? Do they look closer to being a 500 team? Do they look in that small period? And John Means being gone is a big issue for them. Big issue.
Big loss. Yeah, that's a tough one. But you're right. I mean, that'll be the tell. Can they lose less than 100? I mean, 500 would be the World Series. 500 would be like winning the World Series.
Yeah, and if they start to play 500 ball from August 15th to the end of the year because they have 3 major league starters up and a couple of the kids are hitting the ball and Mancini's still here and Mullins gets out of his early season funk, he's in and they're fine. Like, I'll hear that, but I don't know that I'm watching him every night. I don't know that anybody else is, but I do think people will get in the car and go see Adley Rutschman play. They did last summer.
Absolutely.
And I think they're more inclined even this year without after COVID.
You got to have the big city, the big, major league draw. You got to have the draw. And they picked them. They got a couple good kids down there that can throw. They got a couple good kids that can hit. And they got it. So now it's up to Eric DaCosta to come through and say, okay, I'm gonna pull this town back to the Ravens.
Well, I don't think there's any problem with that. Leonard Raskin is here. He's Raskin Global. I'm wearing the shirt. He is monitoring the American dream. We get the tax season and all that stuff, and it's spring closet clean out for my friends at Goodwill and all that. Give me a little. You send tips out every single day for people to be thinking about their money, and honestly, you got to poke between my wife and I. You got our butts on fire a little bit about thinking about things, and I think now that I'm in the process of end of COVID, reevaluating insurances, reevaluating contracts and wills and estates and all of that kind of stuff. There's never a bad day to think about that kind of stuff, and you're in the business of thinking about it every day. The Ravens are trying to be reborn here this week with players, but there's never a bad time to be thinking about your affairs.
Absolutely correct. We are our next session, our next evening session will be Tuesday, I guess that's May 3rd, Tuesday, May 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Zoom broadcast.
Okay.
We'll get that invitation over to you right away if you don't already have it. We're talking all things protection, what you just said. We're talking about all the ways you protect your wealth from those that would come and take it. And The facts are simply this. Back in the medieval days, as my son would tell us, because that's his area of focus in his college studies, in the medieval days, the kings and the monarchs and the rich put their homes and their castles up on the hillside. And they had it up on the top of the hill because they had needed to defend from the peasants who were trying to get their stuff from down below so they could see them coming. And they built moats around those castles so that you couldn't get in and take their stuff. And everybody knew what you had because your stuff was on display. You had your land, you had your armies, you had your gold, you had your silver, you had your baubles, and everybody knew who was wealthy and who wasn't. Nowadays, that's not a known thing unless there's an issue. And so the question is, what do we do to protect our wealth today? Well, we make sure we have liability insurance so that if we're sued, nobody can take it. We make sure we have health insurance so that if we're sick, we don't lose all our money to the doctor, to the hospital. We don't have to declare bankruptcy with medical debt. We make sure we have disability insurance that if I can't work, some insurance company is going to step in and pay me my salary. We make sure that our legal documents are right, that the titling of our assets are right. So again, I get sued. Somebody can't take my stuff because I own it jointly with my wife, so they can't come grab it. We make sure that when we pass, it used to be, it was pretty simple. You stepped on the throne, you were 3 years old because your daddy died. Today, 3-year-olds can't handle the money. It's got to go in trust until they're a certain legal age. And somebody's got to handle that money for them. So you got to make sure your wills, your trusts, your legal documents are up to speed. And as you well know, sadly, when you're sick and you get into that hospital, one of the first things they ask you, or if you're not real sick, but you have some minor surgery, the definition of minor surgery, right?
That's a $50,000 bill.
Yeah. Minor surgery is when it's on someone else.
Right.
That's minor. I don't care. You're putting me under to take a hangnail out. That's major surgery. So when you have surgery, they ask you if you have a living will because they want to make sure if they screw up and they knock you out that you want to live or die. And then life insurance, that last piece that pays into the estate when somebody dies too soon and they didn't make it to fulfill all their dreams. Those are the things that we use to protect people's castles. And people don't look at that stuff. Everybody today wants to talk about investing. Everybody wants to talk about crypto. Everybody wants to talk about gold. Everybody wants to talk about the market. Oh my God, the market's down 1,000. What do I do? You don't do anything except if you have a good allocation, you just buy more of what you're supposed to have. You don't panic because it's down 1,000. You just keep going unless you're using it. If you're using it, then, well, you shouldn't be worried about it because you should be set up right to use it. It's just a matter of doing the right thing ahead of time. It's kind of what we're talking about with the O's and the Ravens, man. It's draft picks. You get
managing resources,
draft picks. You put them on the bench. You put them ready, and when the time comes and they need to step in and play, Tom Brady takes over for Drew Bledsoe. Who knew? But you get the guy that's ready to be next up, and then when he needs to be next up, he's got to be great. And with your finances, you got to put this stuff on the board. Then you put it away in a drawer and you look at it when you need to, but you don't need to look at it every day, but you got to nurse it. You got to nurture it. You got to make sure it's right. So that's what we're talking about on the night of the 3rd. We're going to be talking about all the ways you protect your wealth and what you need to be thinking about, how to get that done. So 3 minutes of what will be about a half hour.
Leonard Raskin joining us here. He is Raskin Global, handling money, handling estates, handling affairs, making sure that all the boxes are checked. You got me my little checklist, and I've got a few empty, unchecked boxes that I'm looking to get through here this spring. How about spring cleaning for my friends at Goodwill? How about a little spring cleaning for your own affairs and your own and your trust and your money and just a strategy and a design and a plan. Leonard Raskin does all that. Last thing for you, Adam Jones upset with the Orioles. You see this, right? Like what you got it. So Adam Jones came up to me and I told this story. I told it a couple times. I don't know if you know this or not, but I wrote a book on the Orioles called The Peter Principles. So you can Google The Peter Principles, just like it sounds. There are about 12 chapters that I put together before my wife got sick. And I did this back in 2013 and 14. I ran into Adam Jones, 6 months after the Ravens won the Super Bowl, I was at Citi Field in New York at the All-Star game. Now, the Orioles were going well, right? The Orioles had like 5 All-Stars in that game. The pitcher, they had J.J. Hardy. Chris Davis was an All-Star. He's hit 50 home runs. So I'm up in New York, and I'm on the field before the actual All-Star game. It wasn't the workout. It was the game. And they're playing catch out on the field. Adam Jones playing catch with J.J. Hardy. Sees me, recognizes me, and keep in mind, I never had a press pass during that era. Never talked to Adam Jones in a locker room in my career. I don't think, maybe I did in New York one time 15 years ago or something. But he says to me while he's playing catch, he's like, "Tell me something, man. Why does the old man hate you so much?" And he says this to me, and I said to him, I said, "You want me to explain this to you in 30 seconds or 1 minute while I'm out on the field? You want me to give you the history of the Baltimore Orioles from August 19th, 1993 until at whatever 2013. It was 20 years then." I said, "You know what? I'll write to you on that." And I went to Tahiti with my wife, speaking of bucket lists. We did our 10th anniversary in Tahiti, and it was like that week, literally, I left the All-Star game, came home, and we went to Tahiti. And while I was away, I decided I was going to write this book for Adam Jones. So I dedicated the book to Adam Jones to explain to him the history of all of the stuff that happened when this guy bought the team and how everyone was treated. Didn't matter if your name was Adam Jones or Brooks Robinson or Cal Ripken or Frank Robinson or Nestor Aparicio or Luis Aparicio or Jim Palmer or Mike Bordick or BJ Sir. Didn't matter who you are, John Miller. Didn't matter who you are. If you're in the scope of that, you will be mistreated, and you will be mistreated not on your own accord. You will be treated poorly. Everyone is. It is a state of mind of the Angelos family to treat people poorly. Now, that being said, I thought the old man was nighty-night, nappy, and eating pudding, and he wasn't making decisions. So you would think somewhere along the line, they can't blame it on him anymore. So that's where I am with this. Where I am on this is, okay, I knew the old man was nuts in a million different ways, and I wrote a book about it. You can go read it. But the modern era is supposed to be, we're cleaning this up. We're getting better around here. We're improving. We're no longer incompetent and mean and petty and cruel and cheap and unreasonable and vicious and mean-spirited. We're different than that. No, you're not.
You got the lowest payroll in baseball, and you're bringing in Paul McCartney to save the day.
I don't know what else there is to say, but we can sit here and talk nice about Rutschman or DL Hall. Any of these guys are coming in. But at some point, when you got Adam Jones pissed off on the third weekend of April enough to be mouthing off that he's that angry, it would seem to me that they're still doing things wrong, Leonard. That would be my point.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't know if he was trying to get a point across or if he was trying to get a point across, but he did. He came right out and said, 30th anniversary Camden Yards, and I ain't even been called. Nobody's even said hello. It's like, wow. There's a lot of guys that they could say hello to. They could be doing a lot of things. There's a lot of great players that came through here for 30 years.
What were they doing in the offseason when they didn't have baseball?
I'm guessing. Is Sutcliffe a broadcaster now? Is he broadcasting?
He has been broadcasting, yes, for ESPN for many years.
But I was just thinking to myself, shouldn't he have thrown out the first pitch opening day?
Right. Because Johnny Oates is unavailable.
Right. He was the opening day pitcher at Camden Yards, wasn't he? First game.
Why wouldn't they bring him and Paul Sorrento back, the guy that hit the home run, and have him come out and say, this was a beautiful thing we did here 30 years ago. It's worth an airline flight to bring these guys in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was thinking.
Leonard, they don't have anybody in there thinking, man. They really don't. I mean, one of the issues I have with the Ravens at this point, they don't have enough Baltimore people around the organization. And I'm going to be talking about that at length because they don't really. They don't know how to connect the dots. And the people like me and the people that are left here that were media, rat poison and all that, we're the ones that are the chroniclers of the history of all of this. The John Eisenbergs, the people that were been here forever.
The owner should know that. The owner should be aware of that fact. Why isn't he aware of that fact? I mean, come on. Is he choosing to just back out? I don't know.
No, well, we'll find out. I mean, there's going to be an answer from the organization in regard to whether Adam Jones is ever invited back in now that he has gone ballistic about, he's gone out and said, I'm not invited around there anymore. And, neither's BJ Surhoff or Mike Bordick or any of them. I mean, they all left disgruntled. Yeah, I don't. Jim Palmer's the only guy that somehow has managed to take their money, show up, mail it in, do his thing, and never have a public fight.
Dempsey's gone, right? The post game was Tom Davis and Rick Dempsey gone. I mean, it's who's doing it? Who's doing it?
It's a guy named Kevin Brown, a gal named Melanie. I don't even know her last name. Melanie. Yeah.
Right. The Kevin Brown dude. He sounds like he's 50. He's like 20.
Mueller loves him. So I don't know any of these people or meet them.
I saw him once. All I can say is I saw him and I heard him. I've heard him before, and then I saw him, and I said, "Oh my God, that can't be the same guy."
People said that to me back.
That voice doesn't go with that face.
20 years ago, people would see me out at the bar, and they'd be like, "You sound a little taller on the radio." I'm not sure. Leonard Raskin is here from Raskin Global. I'm quoting Smokey and the Bandit. We're having a good time. He can handle all your financial needs in the American Dream. You can find him out at the front of Baltimore Positive, and as well each and every week here on our airwaves. And he's trying to clean me up as well. Leonard, I appreciate you, man. Have a beautiful week, and we'll check in next week. By the time we get here next week, we'll have little baby lavender birds, right? Little new birds, right?
There you go. New little ravens in the nest.
That's what I like to hear. That's what the end of April's all about. And then we'll get to a schedule on May the 12th. That's coming your way. We can all figure out exactly when we're going to go see Tom Brady play in Tampa Bay. I am Nestor. He is Leonard. We are WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Little baseball, little football, and the American dream for Baltimore Positive.